What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for another week of building Megito and Lego. This one's an exciting episode because I'm entering a new phase of the series. Every project comes together in stages. You've got your foundational stages, main build stages, and finishing touches, depending on the project. I've been in the foundational stage of Megito for a while now, grinding through rock walls and bridge pillars. But today I begin the foundations of the city, laying out and building the terrain it's going to sit on, like rock walls, steps, and statues. I'm also going to be adding some more battle damage to the main bridge, as well as trying to figure out a spot to place the battery box. There's lots to see and do, so don't forget to execute order 66 on that like button, and let's get building. The main bridge is currently sagging pretty bad and needs some containers to keep it up. I would like to have those back for building, so I'm going to continue work on the second support pillar, which is also the tunnel on the maintenance bridge. I know this isn't what you would call starting off the week with a bang, but I gotta begin somewhere. I'm going to make the tunnel portion a little taller, then build the rest of the sloped sections separate because that portion is going to be at a different angle than the rest of the pillar. It's a really weirdly assembled build, and I'm hoping the finished pillar doesn't look super goofy, but I couldn't think of a better way of building it, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. When I got to the sloped section, I ran into a problem. I was about halfway done when I ran out of slopes, particularly the tall inverted ones that make up most of the flat sections. Thankfully, my last package of parts for the month came in a couple of hours before I ran out of slopes, and it contained a bunch more of the inverted and other slopes. Unfortunately, those reinforcements ran out about 2 minutes later and I couldn't finish anyways. I'm going to turn my sights to the city next and start building the foundational pillars and support beams that'll hold everything up. This is taking me back to the good old days of Utapau, which would have been the most challenging MOC I've ever built, but I went on to build a city hanging between two mountains and a massive Senate building. Maybe someday I'll return to the flat, easy plains of Naboo. Anyways, Utapau was hard because I had to hold up so much weight so high up in the air, and the taller you make something, the weaker it gets, especially support pillars. So I'm building these large support pillars that fan out on either side, and I'm hoping these will be enough to hold up multiple rows of 16 by 16 plates without me needing to put pillars of brick underneath every single one of those, because that would be a stupid amount of 2x4s. Now I can run the 16 by 16 plates. This is always satisfying because it's a lot of very visual progress, since we get to see a huge hole get plated over. This will help me better gauge how much space I'm working with for the city, and it's more than I realized, which is a good thing because I was considering scooting this whole mountain forward and making the main bridge smaller because I was worried about not having enough room for all the buildings, but I've got space for days. At last, I can add the finishing pieces to the top of the mountain. I want to have a lot of snow right here since it's fairly flat and there would be a lot of buildup as it's very exposed to wind and storms. Slowly but surely, I've been getting better at remembering to add snow to the MOC. It's no Hoth, but Megito still looks pretty chilly. I'm so happy to be adding the top of the mountain because that means I'm starting to begin a new phase of the MOC, the city. I've been grinding through the foundations phase of this project for so long, it'll be nice to get to more detail-oriented fun building like trees, gardens, defenses, and buildings. Speaking of fun, I need to rip up part of the bridge and add in a custom 16 by 16 plate I made that has holes in it for wire to run through. After that, I need to build a box for the battery pack to sit in. I managed to light the entire maintenance bridge with one pack, but I don't think I'll be as lucky with this bigger one, so this one's going to light up the first 3 lights and maybe Ki-Adi-Mundi's saber depending on where he ends up. These bad boys are pretty big, so I have to build a big box for them, but the nice thing is the switch is on the top instead of the side of the battery box like the old ones I have, so all I need is a little access point at the top to switch them on and off. I've been wanting to add craters to the bridge like the one I built on Coruscant, but I've been putting it off since I knew it would be complicated trying to build them into the thin bridge floor. I started out by removing a big chunk of the bridge and making a hole. Next, I took a bunch of 1x slopes and laid them on their sides to make the shape of the crater. After that, I just filled in the edges with brick and plate so the frame of slopes fits snugly and doesn't move around. Then I covered up any gaps with wedge plate and tile. I know this probably looked pretty easy for how long I've been putting it off, and honestly it wasn't too bad. The hardest thing was getting that initial hole built lower than the bridge floor, since right now it doesn't have a bottom, so I didn't have anything solid to build on. Alright, let's see how Megito's coming together. So this pillar is coming along nicely. I'm a little disappointed I wasn't able to get the whole thing finished because now I'm going to have to wait until next month to get this done.
Mostly just waiting on, well, I'm waiting on all the different kinds of slopes. I just don't have enough. So far, I think this is gonna fit pretty nicely. So it's gonna sit like this on the main pillar. Right now, the only like big problem I'm foreseeing happening is there's gonna be like flat sections right here, because you can see this top part is much skinnier than this one. So there's gonna be flat sections on this side because this bottom one's wider, and it's gonna be sitting at an angle. If this part and this part were at the same angle, it wouldn't be a big deal and they'd be the same width, but because the bridges are at an angle from each other, this thing's gonna be tilted. So I'm just gonna have to wait and see what exactly the angle is gonna look like so I can know how to cover up those flat sections. But that's really the only issue I foresee over there. The crater in the bridge is looking real good, and I've already got the battery pack covered up. Definitely gonna need to figure out a new latch for this because it's kind of a pain, but you can see I can get to the switch. I was able to raise up this crater one brick, so the wire actually runs underneath here, and I'm really happy with how this is looking. I'm just obviously going to leave it like this for a little while because I'm going to have to keep moving it around, so I don't want to have to rebuild the entire crater, but I'm thinking about putting another one right here. I do need to be kind of careful with how many craters and how much battle damage I put into this bridge because I still need it to function, and for how big it is, it's relatively thin, so I don't want to weaken it too much, but I would like to have a little bit more battle damage, so maybe a couple of smaller holes pockmarking the bridge somewhere else. I can't tell you guys how nice it is to finally see some plate at the top of the rockwork. I felt like this rockwork was never going to end, but at last, we've got one of the levels in. It's all ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is start running the rock wall right here that's going to divide this lower section from the upper section. That way I can start putting the stairs and statues and other garden stuff in. And then I'm going to start placing the buildings and figuring out where they're going to go. I can also start the surface portion of the droid base. There is one thing I do need to fix or adjust with the supports. Those big pillars are a little bit wobbly. If I push down right here on the sides, you can see makes the support move a little bit just because it's only supported in the middle. So I'm going to put a pillar on either end of those supports just to make them stronger. That way, you know, when I'm pushing down and putting tile in place, I don't actually cave the whole thing in because that would really suck. I'm also going to leave this sidewall open because I realized this is going to be super nice for building on the surface because now I can put my hand underneath and support it while I'm pushing down on the plate without breaking anything. And this will be super easy to brick off, probably like, you know, the last week or two of the series. One thing I'm trying to figure out now is what I'm going to put at the edge of the city right here running along the cliff wall. There's obviously got to be something, right? People this rich or this big of a city wouldn't just have this massive drop off because you wouldn't want things or people falling off the edge. So I want to put some kind of wall in, and I had, you know, kind of an idea for a stone wall like this, something that looks a little medieval, but I don't know, I think that might look kind of cool. I'm not really sure what else I would put here, maybe some kind of fence with gaps in it, but that might look a little bit too much like a farm or something. So let me know in the comments what kind of a wall would look good running along the edge. If you like this stone wall, something like an electrical fence, or maybe you have another idea, let me know in the comments. But I'm also much happier with the ratio of snow to rock, especially up here at the top. I've been adding a lot of slope and brick just because, you know, I feel like a lot of snow would pile up right here at the top. That's a perfect little spot for it. So as I continue going this way, I'm going to be replacing more of the top with white.
I forgot to modify the tri-droids I built last week, but like I said, they don't need much. I'm still impressed with how good these look. They've come a long way from the last tri-droid we got.
He's right.
I'm adding slopes to the bottom of the legs to beef up the feet and have less plate undersides exposed. Then I'm going to tile off part of the legs. Basically, I'm just making them smoother and studless. I have 2 right now, but I'm thinking of adding 1 more. But instead of buying a whole nother battle pack, I'm probably just going to get the parts off of Bricklink since I don't want any more of those gross clones hanging around my Lego room. The last thing to do is add some pegs to the blasters, and these are ready to hit the mean streets of Mego and do some damage. This Galactic Marine even had to pause the fight and snap some pics for the boys back home on Camino.
I'm also in the process of decaling a couple more Galactic Marines. The only thing left to do is put the visor printing on this helmet and then I'll be all done. Unfortunately, I forgot to buy more white legs, so I had all the pieces, I had all the rest of the pieces, but I'll have to wait until next month to give these 2 Marines their legs.
Now for some rock work I've actually been looking forward to.
I've been looking forward to this.
I'm building the natural wall that will separate the upper and lower levels of the city. I want the whole thing to have a terraced look with multiple levels of buildings and gardens or whatever connected with sets of stairs carved into the rock. I thought this would look cooler than just having the whole city on one flat plane. I'm making sure to add lots of snow into the walls as well, and I'll probably have a little bit piled up on the steps later. When I built a prototype of the city layout, I added some statues to the mouth of the stairs and I made the whole area look more elegant and detailed. So I'm going to do the same thing here, and as a bonus I can reuse the statues for my Coruscant mock. The steps are kind of shallow, so it'll take a lot of them to get to the next level, but I don't need all of them in right now, just enough to know where they're going to be and where to build parts of the rock work. I don't want these walls to be too tall, so I'm going to stop them about here. There's no point in making them super tall since I can get that terrace look with fairly short walls, and making them taller would be a waste of time and money. Once I get this wall finished, I can put the roads, paths, and buildings in. I'm so happy with how this rock wall looks. It's doing exactly what I hoped it would and is going to make the city much more dynamic and interesting. I was going to add a second staircase right here, but I think I might add a road instead so small vehicles can access this level. I have a really good ratio of snow to rock. The smaller walls make it easier to add seemingly bigger patches of snow without needing to use a bunch of pieces. The stairs and statues add some much needed detail to the rock. I also have this minifig statue I could use instead of the big ones. It takes up less space and might make the entrance feel less crowded, but it's also less detailed and doesn't look as good. Let me know in the comments which statue you prefer. I'm so happy to have this in and know what I have planned is actually going to work, because now I can move forward at a quicker pace. Sometimes not knowing exactly what a build needs to look like or how it's going to come together causes me to procrastinate building and waste time, but now I can just copy what I have here for the other levels. I left the front of the wall unbuilt because I'm still not sure what kind of guard wall will be running along this edge and if or how it will be connected to the rock. I'm so ready to be working on the city. I still have lots of the 16x16 plates I ordered, so I can get even more of it laid out next week. I never planned on the city being a very exciting portion of this build for me, but after the amount of gray walls and pillars I've built, I'm so ready for a change of pace. Next week, I'm hoping to get the roads in, some of the paths leading to the houses, get some of the buildings in, especially that surface portion of the droid base. I also really need to start on the Magna Tri-Dread. I was going to do that this week, but I ended up doing other things. All that being said, that wraps up this update. Don't forget to let me know what you thought about everything down below in the comments, and I will catch you next time, but until then, happy building.